Hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon, depending on where you're joining us from. We are just on time, so we're going to give it a couple of minutes for the people who are joining us to get a chance to get settled, and then we will make a start. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Um, very warm welcome to today's webinar, Introducing THE Counselor. I keep saying good afternoon, but I'm aware that there's people located all over the world. So where you're joining us, have a very warm welcome. My name is Catalina Powell. I am the I'm not the operations director, as my previous job role. I am the global director of THE Counselor, which I am absolutely delighted to be here today to tell you more about. I am joined by my colleague Adi Bloom from the THE Counselor editorial team, and by Jeff Neal and Jenny Taisel from our International Schools Advisory Board, two very experienced counselors themselves who I'm delighted to be here with us today to tell you a little bit more about their journey as counselors, about their involvement in the Times Higher Education BMI counselor-led activities, and perhaps share some tips and tricks about the counseling profession and what to expect. So the format today is I'm going to share with you again a little bit about our strategy, about those activities that we have for counselors. I will then pass on to Adi to tell you more about the content side of the platform, THE Counselor. And I want most of the webinar really to be about Jeff and Jenny, who will be sharing, as I said, their experience, who will be sharing a little bit about their journey so far and what to expect and how to make the most out of the activities that we will be talking about today. A couple of housekeeping things. We are recording this webinar. The recording will be made available to everybody who registered for the event, so not to worry, we will be sharing that. There is a facility to submit questions on the at the bottom of your screen. You will see the Q&A. So please feel free to type up any questions that you might have, and we will try and get to as many as possible, either during the conversation or at the end if we've got time. But without further ado, I'm going to make a start. So a lot of you will have been familiar with Times Higher Education. We are the leading data provider for the higher education industry. We do the flagship Times Higher Education World University rankings, as well as impact rankings and many of the regional rankings. Traditionally, we had always spoken to an academic audience. But a couple of years ago, we launched our student-facing platform. And it was this idea of creating a platform with information for prospective international students. Then a year ago, the BMI team joined Times Higher Education. And for those of you familiar with BMI, they are the leading student recruitment events organizers throughout the world. They have over 30 years of experience in the industry. And within the work that they have done, with students, with connecting universities to those students and their work within high schools, they had already created a fantastic network of high school counselors. Those are the people that provide advice to students around their next steps, around career selection, around selecting future universities, etc. So our counselor strategy was really born as a result of demand from the counseling community asking us for more. They wanted more engagement with us. They wanted to find different ways to connect with universities, with us, but especially with each other. Our counselor strategy is very much underpinned by our incredible advisory board. And Jeff and Jenny are here representing the board. We have 14 counselors from all over the world that are incredibly knowledgeable, incredibly experienced, and most of them incredibly generous with their time. They come together to advise us, to help us, to guide us. And you will continue to hear this throughout the webinar today, how it is really them who guide what we do. Our strategy is composed of 3 pillars. THE Counsellor, that we are officially launching today, and I will tell you a little bit more about in a minute. Our flagship professional development course for counsellors, the CAP, the Counsellor Accreditation Program, and the in-person events that we hold throughout the world, the BMI THE International Schools Forums and Workshops. So what is THE Counsellor? THE Counsellor is a resources platform created especially for international school counselors to help them advise students on career and university selection. It has been created in partnership with Common Purpose, UCAS, Unifrog, UCL, and Huron University. And it is really thanks to our founding partners that THE Counsellor came to being. And what we look to collectively do is to amplify the voice of the international school counselor community. I will hand over to Adi at this stage, who, as part of our editorial team, can tell you a little bit more about the content of THE Counsellor itself. So Adi, over to you.
Thank you. So my name's Adi. I'm the commissioning and content editor for THE Counsellor. And what that means is that I work with counsellors to discuss ideas for articles, to help them turn those ideas into publishable articles. We've got some people for whom that comes naturally. They just write an article, send it to me, and then I check it's everything it needs to be and publish it. Other people need support during the process. That they need. I know that you're not professional writers, so I'm here to help you turn your thoughts into an article. Our aim is above all to be counsellor-led, by counsellors for counsellors. So I'm completely reliant on counsellors telling me what the issues are that matter for you, what trends are, what people are talking about in schools right now, and what you want to read about. You know more than I do, so I want to be led by you. And because we want to be led by counsellors, that's why we put together the International Advisory Board. They helped us to divide our content into 6 key areas for counsellors, which I'll go through in a minute, reflecting the concerns and career expectations of counsellors. And these also reflect the modules in the CAP. The advisory board have been great in terms of acting as a sounding board for ideas, suggesting areas that we want to look at, writing content themselves. Augusto, who was at the webinar this morning, has done a couple of series on various he did one on admissions to US universities, one on school university visits. Jeff, who's here, has done a great video in which he talks about university rankings and whether or not they're useful. And I love that he's done it as a video because it feels like you're talking to him and he's speaking to you and counselling you, which works really nicely. Jenny, I believe, is going to write us a couple of pieces on building your network as a counsellor, and really sort of wanting to work with all of them and with all of you. So the 6 content areas we have, the first is admissions processes and funding. So this is obviously a big area. It's articles on admissions processes to different countries' universities. So far we have the UK and 3 of our partners, UCAS, Unifrog and UCL, are able to talk about admissions processes in the UK, and quite detailed, particularly from UCAS, looking at how you go about choosing a university in the UK, what that process entails. The US, as I said, Augusto has done us a great series there. We've got our partners Huron, who are in Huron University, who are in Canada, have done us a couple of articles on choosing a university in Canada, and are going to do some more about studying in Canada. And we've got a piece on applying to university in Australia and what the admissions processes are there. But there are more countries, there are more universities. So I'm really open to anyone saying, I am the expert on applying to university in this country. Can I write something for you on that? And it can be very, very specific. We've got a piece that we're going to run shortly on applying for medicine in the UK, which is very, very niche, but it's a niche where they need to know how it really matters. So things like that, where it may seem really niche, but to the people who are interested in doing it, if you want to apply to study medicine in the UK, or you are a counsellor whose students want to apply to study medicine in the UK, that's really vital information. The second area is counselling generally, which is the broadest section. It's what it means to be a counsellor, the issues that affect your day-to-day life. That's everything from CPD to university visits, also things like third culture kids, sustainable careers, helping students take the indirect route to their goals. So yeah, anything that crops up in your work, in your life as a counsellor, I'm keen to hear about for that section. The next section is mental health and resilience. And obviously this is about helping students deal with the stress of choosing a university, disappointment if they don't get into their university of choice, leaving home for the first time, everything that entails, possibly moving to a different country. But it's also about looking after your own mental health as a counsellor, because you can't be any help to your students if you're not looking after yourself as well. And that's where something like the article that Jenny's proposed on building a network really matters, because building a network is a way of looking after your own mental health and making sure that you have that support in place. The next section is managing stakeholders. That's obviously handling parents, working with, which is a big issue for lots of counsellors, but it's also working with students, with teachers, with SLT. Then we've got another section is reporting and advocacy, which is making sure, even if you're the only counsellor in your school, that you're not working alone, that you are shouting from the rooftops about what you do, and that you are bringing in the other members of staff in your school and letting them know how they can help you and how they can work with you. And the final section is sector trends. And so far we've got a couple of great pieces that Jeff has written on AI and how it can be useful for counsellors. But there are other sector trends, and you are the ones who know about them. So I'm really, really keen for submissions for that area, and just for you who are on the ground to let me know what you think the trends are at the moment. We have a weekly newsletter that's delivered into people's inboxes every Thursday, and that's the digested highlights of what's new on the website. So new articles from that week, but also we have a spotlight on a counsellor, so either one of the advisory board or a counsellor who has a particularly interesting story to tell, something that might inspire or interest other counsellors, and forthcoming events as well, and also job adverts relevant to counsellors from schools across the world. And we're on Instagram, where we have the latest articles, we've got updates from the CAP, and we've got short videos from counsellors talking about how they've used the CAP and how they've used counsellor content in their roles, in case you want to be inspired or you just think, how is this going to be useful to me? So I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear your ideas for articles. They don't have to come as fully formed articles or even as fully formed ideas. I've got one counsellor or a couple of counsellors now who've sent me loosely arranged thoughts that they've had. And we're working together to try and shape it into an article, to look at what it might mean, to look at how one might structure it in an article form, to turn it into something that will be interesting and relevant for other counsellors. So that's why I'm here, is to help you do that, to help you can come to me with ideas, with thoughts, and together we can work on shaping it into an article. And it doesn't matter if you're not a confident writer or if you're not confident writing in English. Again, that's why I'm here to help with that. We also take videos, we take Q&As, we can add resources to articles, so we can be quite flexible. So please come to me with ideas, say, I think this would work really well, and if I can, we will make that happen. So yeah, we above all, we really want to be counsellor-led. We want our content to reflect what counsellors are thinking and what your concerns and priorities are and what you want to read about. And really the only way we can do that is if counsellors are willing to get in touch and say what they want to read about, and we can make sure that our website reflects that. Kat is going to put up my email address. Yes, it's there. So it's adi.bloom@timeshighereducation.com. And I really look forward to hearing from you.
That was great. Thank you so much, Adi. And yes, just to reiterate, the content on THE Counsellor is, you will find 3 types of content. THE Counsellor editorial content created by Adi and the rest of the editorial team, which is again very much mirroring the content areas of the CAP, which have been directed to us or helped put together with us by the advisory board. Founding partners content, I mentioned our founding partners, UCAS, UCL, Huron, Unifrog, and Common Purpose. So content that they have told us, we know that this is important for counsellors. We know that the counselling community could benefit from accessing these resources. So you will find that content there. And last but not least, especially what Adi was mentioning at the end there, which is that counsellor-generated content. So anybody who has any ideas around pieces that they would like to share with the counselling community, please reach out to Adi and we can have a chat about it. I said that there were 3 pillars to our strategy. The second pillar to our strategy is our flagship professional development course, created in partnership but with Common Purpose, or the CAP, as you will hear us refer to it. This is a free course, is online, is asynchronous, which means that you can take it on demand. When a counsellor successfully completes the CAP, it's a 2-year accreditation with an ability to reaccredit every couple of years. Your school will be listed on the TAT website, and this will be these are the list of schools that employ an accredited counsellor, because the accreditation itself sits with the counsellor. So if you move schools, the accreditation moves with you. So far, we've had about 2,500 counsellors from 139 different countries, which is absolutely fantastic, considering we only launched in October. So we have counsellors from all over the world coming to us, and really don't just take our word for it. Have a look through social media, LinkedIn, Instagram, at what the counsellors are saying themselves about the CAP, about the content, how useful they found it, and all the different things that they have taken from the CAP to apply into their day-to-day jobs. Adi spoke about the content areas a moment ago for THE Counsellor. These are mirrored by the 6 content areas within the CAP, so you will see them there. It's 12 modules altogether, and once you complete the modules, there is an assessment piece that you submit as part of the CAP. Adi's team is in charge of reviewing those assessment pieces, and they select which ones get published on THE Counsellor as well. So that's another opportunity for publication and to share with the counselling community. We have put the QR code there, so please, I encourage you to visit the website, have a look through it, and sign up to the CAP. Last but not least, the third element is the international schools, forums, and workshops. These are the regional events that we do in person. The first half of the year, they will take place in the Gulf, in Dubai. Latin and Central America will take place in Panama, Southeast Asia in Ho Chi Minh City, Brazil in Sao Paulo, and our global event in London. And then the second half of the year, we are planning to hold them in Bogota, India, Africa, and China. So for the first time, we're expanding to new territories. Again, you will find the QR code there. Please visit the website, have a look at the events that are already live. The ones that I mentioned here that you don't see will be coming later on, but you can register your interest to take part in these events. I'm going to stop at this stage and stop rambling on. And what I would like to do is really for you to get a chance to hear from Jeff and Jenny. To start with, Jeff first, and then Jenny, would you like to introduce yourselves and maybe tell the audience a little bit about your journey into counseling?
Sure. Thanks so much. Hello, everybody. My name is Jeff Neal, and I'm the Director of College Counseling here at Graded, the American School in Sao Paulo, in Brazil. This is my third year here, but this is now my 23rd year of working in the college counseling domain, always in schools. It's my 6th school on 4 continents. So kind of moving backwards, I spent 2 years in West Africa and Senegal at the International School of Dakar, 4 years in Taiwan before that at the Taipei American School. And then the previous 12 years split between 3 boarding schools in the United States. I've been actively involved in a few different components of the Times Higher Ed, I think, world that I think we've just kind of covered. But I've always really just loved being a part of the events and the programs because of the sense of community that Times Higher Ed and BMI have worked to espouse and to bring about globally around the world. So that's part of why I'm here. A little bit about my background. Jenny?
Thanks, Jeff. So my name is Jenny Tassel. I'm the head of counseling at the International School of Panama, where I have been for the last 5 years. And previous to that, I was at another school in Panama for 11. So I've always kind of been in the same country. I am what I like to call Panagringa, part Panamanian, part American. Yeah, so I've been a counselor now for about 15, 16 years. I have been so honored to be in the same company as Jeff, who is amazing, and the rest of the advisory board, which brings such a wealth of knowledge. And so I began my involvement with Times Higher and BMI last year, and it's been quite a whirlwind since. So it's been really exciting.
Thank you both. Yes, I must say that of all the people that we have worked with in the past, professionally, all the different audiences, all the different groups, we have just been blown away by the generosity of the counseling community, and in particular our advisory board. Just so incredibly generous to really share your knowledge, to share your time, to be able to connect with each other, to mentor each other has just been absolutely fantastic. And what we wanted to do with THE Counsellors is really provide that platform to facilitate those conversations amongst yourselves. And I wonder if at this point you would like to comment a little bit on the importance of the networks. And of course, Jeff and Jenny, you're both experienced, you work in different types of schools, and we know that perhaps sometimes the role involves you very easily being able to connect with other counselors, whether it's because you're part of a larger team within the schools or part of a school network, but other times is perhaps more a bit of a one man or one woman band. So perhaps do you want to comment a little bit around the building of the networks? And again, I know, Jenny, this is something that you're keen to write on THE Counselor about. So perhaps we go to Jenny first and then to Jeff.
Yes, thank you. I think that this is one of the most important aspects of our job, because I've worked both at a school where it was 1 to 2 people that were managing, working with students, to now a bit of a larger team. And so for me, like in the development of my role as a counselor, I don't think I could have done any of the things I've done without having a community. That started in Panama as we created our Panama School Counselor Association, and it's kind of just been latching on. I think as in our roles, it's no matter how much you know, you definitely don't know enough because everything is evolving and changing, and there's always new information coming out that we have to stay abreast to. And so I think just like latching on to people smarter than myself and more experienced than myself has really been a saving grace for me in my journey as a counselor, which I think is been really helpful with this network. From attending one of the forums, I personally was able to connect with, 100 or so counselors within that, which we created a WhatsApp group, and it's been super active on questions, concerns, things that we're dealing with our own students within our own regions, asking university specific questions. And because it's such an experienced group of counselors, literally from every corner of the world, the responses are so interesting with the different perspectives depending on the region that they're at, which has been really helpful for myself to grow as a counselor and to be more aware of impact depending on the area that our student is wishing to apply for, or we're receiving students regardless of the intent. So it's been really nice to have that as an additional network. But I think also when you go to these professional events, it's so valuable, not just the content, but it's just as important the people that you're meeting through this process. And so whether you're in person at these events or you're engaging online, there are so many people. And I think this is evident just by the amount of people that are on this webinar for something that just launched. We're all searching and super hungry for information and guidance and people that do exactly what we're doing and where we don't have to reinvent the wheel every time we start an initiative, which Jeff knows because I reach out to him all the time. Hey, do you have this resource or this resource? Can you share this program that you did with your parents? Because honestly, there's probably someone out there that's doing things a lot better than I am, that I can lean on. And so just the generosity too, as she was saying, the generosity is incredible. Yeah, I don't know of a network of professionals that are as generous as our group of counselors that we work with.
That's so true. That's so true, Jenny. Jeff, would you like to add anything to that?
Sure. Just to kind of piggyback and pick on some themes that Jenny's brought about. As I made reference, this is my 23rd year of doing this work. And I think if I look back and reflect over my time, the only constant has been the state of change within this domain. And it requires us, as Jenny suggested, to be consistent, constant learners. And that's on my better days, I say that's what keeps me young. On my worst days, I say that's what causes my white hair. But it is one of those things. And I really appreciate the work of Times Higher Ed, particularly with the counselor initiative, because there are places out there where we can get information, but they are very disparate. And I love the fact that this is a sort of a global free available resource for people from the world over. But beyond that, as I think back on my time and my evolution, I think it's helpful maybe to contribute this. When I was a much younger counselor with much less white hair, I thought that my job was to know everything. I thought that my role was to be in the persona that I label it as the answer guy. In more sort of traditional pedagogical terms, I thought I had to be the sage on the stage. And as I've gotten older, I realized that there's no possible way I can learn everything, I can know everything. So to have resources like this where we can kind of tap into it, those different questions and that continual learning is really, really wonderful. But then also what I've learned over the years is that the people are our greatest resources. So to be able to go to a global forum like Jenny made reference to back in May and be surrounded by 100 counselors, and I'm quite confident every single one of them was a better counselor, knew more than I did, was really humbling, but also incredibly growth oriented in the sense that I learned so much. I recognized those areas where I could be doing things better and picked up quite a few tricks along the way.
And in particular, thinking about tricks, Jeff, you said a moment ago, we have a very, very wide range of people that are coming and engaging with us. So whether it is going through the CAP, the Counselor Accreditation Program, or whether it's visiting THE Counselor to look at the content, there will be people that are brand new to the role, that this is day one, that perhaps have no background in counseling, perhaps are teachers themselves, perhaps come from a different industry altogether, all the way to highly experienced counselors like yourselves. So I wanted to ask about what advice would you give to counsellors on both ends of that scale? So advice for counsellors who are brand new to their roles, and advice to counsellors who are highly experienced. Jeff, do you want to start, and then Jenny?
Sure, yeah. And to just take a step back first, I would say that, as I look back on my journey professionally, in the early going, so much of my self-education was centered around this concept of, what, to try to find what are the answers. And then it evolved, I think, sort of over time into the where, knowing that I can't find everything, where can I find it? And as of late, I've realized that it's become much more of a curiosity from my perspective about the how, because just, we've got two counselors on this call here, Jenny up in Panama and me down here in Sao Paulo. We are, our schools are very similar in lots of ways, but there's so much that's different. Our school culture, our context, our national context, there's so much. And so the way that Jenny goes about, peeling that banana is a very different way than what we do here. And so on one end, I think that I'm really excited about the THE counselor, just looking at the content that's already there. There are plenty of real specific applications of how people do things at specific schools. And I do think that that is much more of I'd say a quote unquote advanced topic, in the sense of those are those questions that me farther on in my career are much more interested in. But there are also a lot of those what's, the answering those at the other end. I think that the idea, the advice to answer your question, Kat, would be to come back to this idea that for those people at the beginning of their career anyway, just to be open-minded and to recognize that there are a million different ways to apply and to implement, and so much of that is dependent upon your particular context. At the more advanced end, I think my advice is probably very similar: to be open-minded, because the way that you do things isn't necessarily the best way. And I think the longer we do things, there is this, challenge within education period where we do try to resist change. It is very natural in human nature. This is the way we do things here. You never really want to have that be the end of the conversation. So I'm really hopeful and optimistic, just having seen a lot of the content so far, and not just the content for the counselor, the THE counselor, but also in the CAP programming, and also at many of the forums that I've been fortunate enough to be able to attend, about how eye-opening and amazing it's been for people of all, I think, statuses and years of experience.
I don't know how to say that any better than Jeff did. He's such a word wizard. But I think, like, for the experienced counselors, I think that one thing is what he said about being flexible is so important, because it's not that, the way that I have done things with my students or presented information, I've had to change drastically over the last, let's say, 5 years. I think also as a counselor that I've grown, but also because the kids are changing. And the way we need to present the information has changed. And then I think, going to more professional events, engaging with people from within my region to understand how they're doing things and how I can do things better. I think that has also influenced my personal growth. And so I be humble, I think, and be open, and listen a lot. Like when I'm sure that many of the counselors on here, you may be from schools where you haven't had the opportunity to attend some professional development events. Look at what's available within the context of the region you're at, because there may be some options of you to receive professional development within that region. And I think that Times Higher and this group has worked really hard to be as global as possible, which is great, because specifically for the Latin American one we're having in Panama, there's counselors that are going to be attending that are quite new, like super new in their first year, and counselors that are on their 30th year, coming from within our region. And so to be able to, like, collectively share information when we're dealing with a lot of the same types of students from the same region is incredibly helpful. And so I think just, yeah, being open and listening and trying to understand why people do the things that they're doing, and how we can continue to adapt along with the students, because the students are changing really fast too.
Yeah, fantastic points from both Jenny and Jeff. And I was recently doing an interesting exercise where a journalist reached out. They wanted to write a piece around THE counsellor, and one of the questions they were asking me was around what did I think was the biggest challenge right now for in the context of counselors, in the context of students going through high school and coming into the world of work. And to both Jeff and Jenny's point from a moment ago, is this idea to me that the amount of choice out there is just absolutely exponential. And whereas I take myself back to when I was in high school and I was graduating from high school and I was looking at what my options were, it was a very linear process, right? You know, you finished high school, you went to university, you did your 3-4 year degree, and you know, voila, you've graduated. Perhaps you do a master's degree, and that it was kind of like a very easy choice in a way because it was all very well mapped out. And fast forward to what's happening right now, and there's just so much out there. My goodness, we had a fabulous session at the London event last year with Jane from the Education Index. And for those of you taking the CAP, some of those recordings are up there as some of the modules available for you to watch again. And our minds collectively were just being blown away by the amount of choice, the different types of career options. You've got micro-credentials, you've got transnational education, you've got you know, different universities all over the world offering degrees in English that you can choose and opt into and take bits and pieces for. You can become a multimillionaire by doing AI plugins and just putting them out there, right? So to Jeff's point of not being the fountain of knowledge of everything, but it's around how can you as counselors are able to help a student navigate all of those choices, and perhaps some of the traditional counseling ideas of, you know, again, this linear process. Perhaps some of them need to be adapted, some of them need to be redefined altogether. And what we want to do here, and perhaps here I'd like to again bring Jenny and Jeff to talk a little bit about, is some counselors might find that incredibly scary. And I know I find some elements a little bit scary as well, thinking, you know, there's just so much out there. Where do you even begin to give that advice and to help students navigate? So perhaps I want to invite you to maybe comment a little bit on that. Jeff, do you want to make a start, and then maybe Jenny?
Sure. Yeah, it's you are correct. As you know, if I tried to talk about, you know, the biggest challenge that I face in my professional role right now, it is the proliferation of options and choices, and trying to guide students ultimately. I mean, this is a counselor platform, a counselor oriented program, but in the grand scheme of things, all of us are after the best interests of our students. That's why we're all here ultimately. And I think that is just it's been a real challenge to try to navigate those waters of, am I trying to be the answer guy? But yes, while I don't need to know every answer to every question that any kid shows up with, you do have to have a sort of a fundamental basic understanding to be able to sort of navigate, or to help students navigate this increasingly globalized world. So I don't know. I mean, it's a tough question, but it's, you know, kids are changing, as Jenny has suggested a couple of times, and they're much more open to more. I think two pieces on that change. On one hand, I think they're much more open to different options. One, but two, they're more sensitive to things that I think, you know, back in the day, Kat, I don't know that we were even aware of as we were going through our own processes. I mean, we talk about things like first of all, cost of attendance, safety, politics, all of the sort of zeitgeisty things that you're going to find on the front page of the newspaper, all factor into the college admissions and counseling process. So it is a strange new world, brave new world, and we are, I think, hopefully navigating it well. I don't know, Jenny, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that one of the things that Jeff said is the globally, like our kids are a lot more open to. I'm like, for myself, like growing up in Panama, it seems like everyone that I kind of grew up with went to one place, and that's kind of where you went, and maybe applied to like 2 or 3 schools, and there wasn't a lot of like thought put into it. But I have seen, and this could be also because I'm at an international school, but with talking with my peers at local schools and around the world, it seems like it's a global trend where kids are really open-minded to wanting to explore places that weren't as common for our students, specifically from Panama, to apply to in years past. So it's very, very common for our kids when we're talking about where they want to study to list 3 regions of the world. And so having that understanding of the nuances of those different regions, but yes, they're wanting to know these like super detailed, like return on investments. Like kids will bring like, what's the ROI on like these schools, where it's like, wow, that's so interesting that you're asking that. Like, yeah, that's super important for you to keep in mind that these kids are leading these conversations on sustainability on the campuses. Politics too. Yes, that's top of some of our students' minds too. And I think you're only as smart as the people you have around you to help you answer these things. So it's very often I'll be like, wow, that's a really good question. Like I had a kid ask about studying law in Mexico the other day, which I'm super familiar with law in Panama and in different regions, but I didn't know. So I reached out on one of my groups, I think it was the BMI group, and I said, hey, are there anyone from Mexico here that has a student apply to law? And I got like 4 different responses that I was able to give back to my student within the hour. So, it's just like, we definitely don't know it all. But the fact that there is something now that exists that is populated by counselors, I think is super, I don't even know the word. It's a relief that like I'm sure a lot of us are attached and part of different professional networks. But the more information, the better. And I think that's one of the things that I've been so impressed about with Times Hires, that they want to know what do we want to know, and what is something that we're struggling with. And so it's funny, as we're helping provide content, we're often bouncing back and forth. It was like, well, I'm actually stuck on this specific issue that I'd really like to research more and try to have a better understanding myself. So it'd be really helpful if someone could present that information to me, and then together we come up with some presentations that we think that we would like to hear as counselors, and just like having those takeaways has helped us be more responsive to the changing needs of our students.
I think I'm going to quote you on that, Jenny. It's a relief. We couldn't be happier to hear you say that. And that's certainly the feedback that we've been getting from other counselors as well. This idea of a collaborative platform where, nobody has all the answers. And I think coming back to this idea to there being so many different types of counselors, so many different types of schools, so many different types of students as well, not all the students will be able to go and study abroad. A lot of the students will be staying in country, so the students will be going on to do apprenticeships, for example, instead of a degree. Some might be going into the world of work. But this idea that the counselor role will help students again navigate the options that are appropriate to them, to their context, to their school, to their where they are located in the world, what's happening around them. It's really important that the message here is as well that THE counselor is aimed to be completely inclusive. This is not just created for the absolute top of the top amazing international schools where the kids are going on to Ivy Leagues. Yes, of course, those counselors are very welcome to take part in, but we want everybody to have a platform and everybody to be able to learn from each other, to nurture each other. At this stage, I want to have a look at some of the questions that have been coming in. Thank you so much for people that have been posting your questions, and I'd encourage you to send us some more. We still have a few minutes left, and we've got Jenny and Jeff on the line, so please make the most out of having them here. Interestingly, some of the questions have been around content itself, and I'd like to turn those questions around to whoever has been posting them and saying, well, if you think this is something that is important to know, for example, there is a question here around scholarships for master's programs, alumni that are interested to find out which universities offer that sort of scholarship programs. How about you go away and do a bit of research and put together a piece that we can upload on THE Counselor so that other counselors can learn from it as well. Some fantastic comments here. I've gone through the website, really impressed, in particular the certification content. This platform is an amazing initiative. Thank you for all this resource. You're very welcome. Fabulous to have you on board. There's a few questions here around the cap, which I will try to respond. There's a question around private counselors excluded from the counselor accreditation program. So the cap is created specifically for counselors that are working within schools. The content is appropriate for counselors working within schools. So at this stage, it's only open for counselors that are working at a school. But THE Counselor, the resource platform, is open to anyone. So if you are an independent counselor, please feel free to connect with us through THE Counselor, through our social media, so that you can participate in the conversation as well. There was a question here for Jeff. What a pleasure to hear Jeff live after getting his recorded video in the cap. Jeff, you've turned into a bit of a celebrity. I don't know if this was intentional or not.
Well, you get to see the front of my head anyway. If you see the recording of me for the artificial intelligence section, unfortunately, I had to hide behind a curtain because my cord for my computer wasn't long enough. So
there's a question here for you. Hey Jeff, I think others would love to hear about the third Thursdays. Also, as it is a great way to learn from and with other counselors and to share resources. I find it incredibly valuable. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So this was in Adam's a friend who lives in Santa Cruz in Bolivia and has been participating in these Third Thursday programs, not explicitly related to THE, but it was very much, I think, germane to Jenny's conversations about sort of network building. When I first got to Brazil, it was right on the heels, or actually the death throes, I guess I should say, of the pandemic. People were very isolated. There was, and what I learned was in South America, there was a very large percentage of schools that just had single person offices. So on the third Thursday of every month, we host a Zoom gathering for people from across the world. The last time we had, I think, 18 people from 16 different countries and 5 continents. So it's just an opportunity to come and share ideas. And one of the other questions in there somewhere was, how do I get involved? That's a great way. Reach out to me. I'm happy to add you and welcome you to that. But more of a tangent as a side note, Kat.
Thank you, Jeff. There's a question here from Nadia. It's wonderful to learn from the experiences of both Jeff and Jennifer. Drawing from your counseling background, do you have any guidance on how we can offer advice to students regarding the application process and preparation for recommendation letters? Jenny, do you want to go first and maybe Jeff afterwards?
Sure. I'm constantly looking on ways to improve the way I get information from students for letters of recommendations. It's funny that you asked this because, like, even this year, because Jeff is also like I'm also awestruck by his fame as well. So I reached out to him because I wanted some new ways to get in from the brag sheets and things like that. And he was able to share information, and also how we can incorporate AI to increase our efficiency while still making sure we're getting all the information needed for the universities they're applying to. So I've been evolving. I think the last 3 years I've done it differently every year because I'm consistently trying to improve letters of recommendations to also include data. I'm in an IB school, and so IB can be really tough, especially when students are applying to schools that maybe don't understand the complexities of like the difficulty level of each of the classes. So I've been including data a lot more in my letters of recommendation, which I think have helped elevate them. So that was one of the questions. It was part of recommendation. What was the second question? In preparation for what? I'm sorry.
With letters of recommendation and the application process.
Yeah. And so we've been able to like incorporate, actually working also with Jeff. I do a junior retreat with my students, and actually Jeff and I are going to be working on a presentation that we're going to do on this. And then Jeff has incorporated like a junior project, which he's doing with his students, which I'm actually going to incorporate into my junior retreat this year. So that's also going to be a really helpful way to increase student advocacy in that process. Jeff, do you want to add to that?
No, I think I mean, these are, I mean, I don't want to in any way come across as being dismissive of the question, but this is exactly what I think the THE counselor platform is for, is answering those questions right there. Do a whole additional series of a dozen webinars to try to talk more about these things. But yeah, I mean, everything Jenny said is I think spot on, and I just trying to always figure out a better way to do things.
Mm-hmm. And we're and these are things that we're definitely, that question is something that we're definitely talking about. And so these are questions that ourselves we're asking that we will use then to populate future CAP sessions and articles for the counselor.
Thank you. Thank you so much. There's quite a few questions around the CAP, the Counselor Accreditation Program. So just to reiterate again, in order to sign up to the CAP, please head to the THE Counselor website. I am going to share all the links again in just 1 minute. Just do this right now. I'm going to leave the QR codes here. So the one in the middle is takes you straight to the CAP page, the CAP landing page. So you can apply to take part in the CAP. As we said, the CAP comprises 6 content areas and 12 modules. We estimate that each one will take you around an hour to complete. And then there is the assessment piece that we mentioned at the very end. And you have 4 weeks from when you complete the CAP modules in order to submit your content piece. Of course, if there is circumstances that prevent you from finishing that in that time frame, you can let us know, and we can absolutely do an extension if that's what is required. The accreditation is valid for 2 years. And in order to re-accredit, you will need to take additional online modules, but all of that will be explained to you via email as well. I'm trying to see if there was any other question around the CAF that we haven't replied. The time frame, 4 weeks from the start. If you have any specific questions around your case, perhaps you have signed up and you haven't received the email to begin the modules, or you have any questions around the assessment piece, if you have any questions around any of the content featured on THE Counselor, you can see our contact details here. Please feel free to email us, contact us through social media, follow us on Instagram, connect with us on LinkedIn, send us messages on LinkedIn. the whole point of this initiative is to interact with the counselling community. So please, please, please reach out, tell us your thoughts, help us spread the word. We keep saying that this is a for counsellors by counsellors initiative, and the way in which we can make it inclusive, the way in which we can bring everybody together is through those connections. So please help us spread the word amongst all your or your peers or your colleagues or your friends who work within schools as well, so that together we can build it, and the more voices that we can bring in, the more diverse and the more inclusive it will be. The only thing that remains for me to say is a huge, huge thank you again to our founding partners, Huron University, who will, by the way, be hosting the very first graduation ceremony for the CAP counsellors who have completed the CAP, and this will take place next year as part of International ACA Conference in Ontario, Canada. So thank you so much to Huron for doing that. UCL, UCAS, Unifrog, Common Purpose, thank you so much, because it was through the support of our founding partners that THE Counsellor really came to be in. And a huge, huge, huge thank you yet again to Jeff and Jenny for joining us today. It has been fantastic hearing you and really that passion shining through. And you know, you can see it yourselves, that this spirit of collaborating, this spirit of generously sharing your knowledge is what has really blown us away and what continues to fuel this initiative. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us today. As we said, the recording will be made available. You can see some links up on the screen, but if you have any questions or anything that hasn't been addressed through the webinar, any content ideas that you have, anything that you want to comment on, please reach out to us. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you, everyone.